So let's look at what it is you do want to bring today.
So this is, as I said, it's slightly vaguer than some of the other very concrete topics, and it's got strands from it. But I'd sum it up as my motivations. So not me being motivated, because I'm a motivated person, but understanding and exploring my motivations, probably in a whole number of contexts, and I haven't quite bottomed out which are the contexts. But I think there's something to do with my motivation when I'm interacting with others, my motivation when I'm trying to focus on outcomes, my motivation when things get under my bloody skin. So trying to understand, and there's probably other areas that will come up. It feels to me it's a little bit like a session we had in about 2015 when I had a long list and suddenly the long list became one homogeneous item, if you like. So I think there's a bit of that with it, but it feels to me like understanding my motivations in a whole range of different environments.
Okay, that sounds fascinating. So when you say my motivations in a series of different environments, and you did a little bit of explaining them, what's brought this forward for you?
I think that I keep on noticing these moments when I say, why did I do that? So slightly regretting some less than, should we call it less than Buddhist, sort of modeling of wonderful behavior. So being a bit, why did I do that? Noticing that I'm just sometimes getting lost in distractions, which are fine if you've got loads of time on your hands, but really niggling if you don't, and then also my motivations with, I suppose, there's something about what I'm trying to achieve here with my work, but noticing, am I putting up my own obstacles? Am I doing a bit of self-sabotage? So I think it's been that, as an example, the realization that I need people to work with me, and I've found people, and I found brilliant people, and apart from one, everyone else is slightly compromised. He's at uni, she's got kids, and they're contracted over here. So I have great people who do their best to be reliable, but they're not fully. And I'm wondering, it's like, if I really want to make this happen, do I need to have sort of the people, they're there when I speak to them, type of thing. So I just noticed that the other day, and it just made me really curious about that sort of, I want this to happen, and yet I've got people around me who might not be able to help as much as I need them to. So I think that's I like a combination of these little micro spiky events, the sort of events where I have to go into the house and say to Abigail, geez, I don't know what happened there, type of thing.
So it's curious, because when you talk about motivations there, you're talking about other people not being as connected as you are, perhaps, or available. And so I have to admit that the word motivation doesn't necessarily resonate in that way.
I think there's something about, I'm trying my very best not to sort of evaluate and judge their motivations for wanting to do A, B, and C. But I think it's like trying to pick up, why am I doing this? Why am I choosing people particularly to work with me who can happily say, look, this term, and oh God, and Ofsted, and uni. I mean, my intern, who's brilliant, because he's brilliant, he got offered a 1-year internship in the evil empire, as I like to call it, in the banks. And so he's really unavailable. So why don't I just go and get someone else, So there's something there about, my motivation to want to have these wonderful people and be loyal to them and have them be loyal to me. And yet it's going to be an obstacle towards, if you like, the pace of growth that I want.
Okay.
So I think that's why I'm really confused a bit, I suppose. Not why I think, and I think it's probably similarly why how do I manage to find myself not filling my time, but doing tasks that have minimal benefit just because they're there in front of me and they're irritating me that they need doing. you know.
Okay. So if you were able to distill that in a different message for yourself, what might it be?
I think the message, I was trying to think about this when I was walking the dog, and I think the message is it's like a values clash, like a clash between beliefs and behaviors, or between what I want to do, what I should do, what I'm avoiding doing. So it's a sort of the clashing and the jarring aspect of all of this, you know.
Okay.
And I suppose within that, and it feels a bit bizarre because I am quite single-minded. So I think it's the sort of bizarreness of how is this happening.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I feel in myself, I'm thinking I'm a bit confused as to what's going on here. And I think I get a sense that you're confused with what's going on here.
Totally.
So it's about how do we unpick this?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. It is, you know, it wasn't a topic that I had written on my pre-list. It was a topic that just started. And I thought, you know, I don't want to talk about, like, as a topic, for example, you know, me getting antsy with people who aren't very helpful on the phone is in that, but I just thought it fits into some sort of slightly wider thing. And maybe it's not, maybe it isn't homogenous. Maybe it's not like we can all bring it down to one sort of common area. Maybe it is a range of things, but I suppose the big outcome of understanding this is that, like, recognizing how am I getting myself in my own way?
Okay.
Because that's what it feels like, you know.
Yeah. So how are you getting yourself in your own way?
Yeah.
And what would you want it to be different?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's totally that. And the example that I have in my mind that was really the moment, you know, as we all do, change email addresses periodically. And I had an email address that I haven't used for about 10 years, but I can't delete the account because there's like thousands of emails that I need to sort of hold on to. Not that I need to, because they're to do with finances and they're to do with my divorce and kids. And so things that I need. But I thought I had it set up so that an email that came in, you know, everyone was told new one, and I had it set up so that every email that arrived would get a reply saying no longer using this, forward to, or, you know. So I thought I was really covered. And then I went there because I needed to find one of those documents in the folder, and found there were thousands of emails. And I found that of those thousands of emails, there were probably about 10 that were from people who are actually people, you know, you know, who are still using that email address and, you know, invited me to do something, but you know, that type of thing. So for me, it's like, okay, I needed to sort of sort this out. But probably what I could have done to sort this out was I just go through the whole list of all the emails, notice those people, write to them and say, you know, I'm not on here, I'm over there, and, you know, sorry I didn't get back to you. But I didn't do that. I spent like 3 hours on this, and I went through every email and all this random marketing crap, and I unsubscribed to everything, and it just took me ages. And when I was doing it, when I was in the middle of this, I was talking to myself and I was saying, what the hell are you doing? Why are you wasting your time doing this crap? You know, but it was like I was bothered. It was a bit like, you know, I mean, Abigail would laugh at me. It's almost like me being bothered that something's untidy, because I leave plenty of things untidy. Look, you know, this is, you know, untidy is not, it's not an unfamiliar concept to me. But yet the untidiness of that email thing it was like I was almost sort of sleepwalking into this behavior, you know, and I didn't have those 3 hours at all.
So is the question, as we distill it, how do I get out of my own way in order to move forward?
Yeah, I think
I'm adding the in order to move forward.
That's a given, isn't it? That's the ellipsis. Yeah, it's completely that, isn't it? It's like, how do I get those things out of my way? Recognize the things that, try and identify the things that, are they in my way, aren't they in my way? You know, trying to understand that. And so then, so it unlocks some of these things.
Okay. So Before I actually ask you a question, where should we start? Is what would make a difference to you today?
Well, I think there's really something about noticing my energy as I talk, because something happened yesterday. I had there was a bit of a niggle, and my energy was really up, and it took me quite, not in a good way, in a way, and it took me quite a fair time to bring it down. And I asked myself, okay, if I had to coach now, could I manage? And I thought, well, actually I could take 5 minutes and look at the trees and I'd be all right. But I noticed my energy was really up. I don't know where my energy is with this. I don't really understand it. And I think I won't know it until I hear it. Maybe watch it back. So I think that would make a difference. I think the other thing that would make a difference is, and I think this is probably a theme for all of our coaching, is like to be settled with so I'm settled, for example, I'm settled that I've chosen the right people and I put up with the frustration that they're not always available, or I'm settled that that's the wrong path, and I need to do a different path. So, or I'm settled that sometimes I have to do things that just I need to respond to. So I think it's a thing about being settled so that the behavior when it turns up doesn't have to distract me, but it's almost like it's welcomed as an old friend, the way that some people name their chimp, here's Dwayne, that type of thing.
So to be settled sounds like an energetic piece as well.
It is. I mean, it's a calming, energetic piece, but it is. It's like, yeah, okay, just to be able to say, okay, that's it. That's what it looks like. So
it's something to do at the end of this is to understand how you notice your energy and how you can be more settled in what energy you need to be in. Yes. I mean, I think the energy bit is, I'm really interested in what energy I bring into this conversation. Yeah. Whether that manifests out of here or not, I don't know. But it's like just noticing, because if things are really, really bothering me, then I think my energy will tell me that. And is that what you want me to also notice? I think, maybe, I mean, if there's something in the moment that's helpful, but otherwise, at the end, any reflections you have, I mean, we have the power of Zoom as well. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I don't, it's not like I need to know that bit now, but I'm already hearing, I'm already, I'm more up than I am. Yeah. I often am. There's a different energy to me today. I can feel that. And is it a good energy or I don't know, actually. I think it's hard to evaluate it. I think it's a forceful energy, whatever the hell it is. Okay, so we've got maybe another 20-25 minutes left. Where do you want to start with this? What would be useful? So there's enough stories floating around. Yeah. But it's so if I'm talking about my motivations, I suppose I have to ask myself two questions, like, well, how clear am I on it, or on what my motivations and drivers are here? Mm-hmm. And also what are these clashes, what are these potential clashes? And within that, are they clashes? So I think, I left the last session, that thing that I came up with of deciding that what's important is a fat gap, and being very excited about that. And it's still, I haven't done much with it apart from write it and think about it, but being really clear that actually that is completely what motivates me, to go where no man has gone, or no woman, or people aren't doing it, or people are doing it badly, and strange enough, a lot of my work, it's not like that. There's lots of good coach trainers. I mean, there's lots of terrible ones, obviously, but there's lots of good coach trainers. I'm talking to one. So that's not a gap. I think but I really care about that, and I think I do it well, and so I think I can excuse myself from that. But these other things where there is definitely a gap, some of the various projects I got involved with, and things that are going to turn up, I need to have time. I need to be open to it. There is nothing that I would like more than to, for example, I did this week, and I've never done this before. I was doing training, and
I'm always in the room an hour before. This time I was in the room an hour and a half before, and when I'm all set, and normally I'm waiting for the people, normally I will do bits and pieces. I try not to check my emails, but I might do some marking, or I might do. But this week I just read a book. I mean, and it was a book for that program for that day, so my mind was in that place, and I wanted to finish it. But it really felt nice just sitting there and reading that book about that thing, because I was enriching myself and ready to add even more value on the training. And just thinking, man, I don't do this enough. Or actually, it's not true. I do it loads, but I don't do it as much as I would like. And I think it's that moment, you know, when I have a great idea and I want to get stuck into it, but I think, yeah, but shit, I've got all that stuff. So I wonder how much I want this, you know, how much I want to, if not necessarily be some person giving TED Talks about all these things, but want to make these things that are a bit risky and a bit scary actually happen. And if I did want them, would I wrote down this morning something about delegating more than I thought was possible. You know, at the moment I delegate a bit, but not enough. So it's like, you know, and the delegation bit is clearly if you haven't got the time to do the thing, you don't do the thing. So I think that there's something about understanding all of this, you know, this sort of underpinning aspect.
What is this?
What, this as in what I want to achieve? Yeah, this. I think that this is, it's the things that turn up that I can do that will make a difference. You know, so in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep, I composed a really good, and I didn't get out of bed and do it, but in my head I composed a really good letter to Jeremy Corbyn. And I'm a lifelong socialist, but I'm really pissed off at a couple of his policies, and I need to write to him. And I'm not the only person who could do this, but I need to, you know. So it's like, okay, that I'm really enthused about that. I mean, it's a massive distraction. It's got absolutely nothing to do with my business, or even, I don't know. But so this is my opportunity to make an impact, and that's what this is, my opportunity to make an impact.
So that almost sounds like a purpose statement.
What do you mean by a purpose statement?
Well, who you are and what's important to you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. When I was younger, when I was in my first marriage, when my wife would say, "Well, what do you want to do?" You know, all I could come up with was, "I want to help people," and you know, she sort of poo-pooed it, and you know, it is a bit bland and generic, but actually, I think what I've done is I've taken that simple statement and sort of shoved it to like a deeper level, as in just not even a deeper level, but like just a more productive level, you know, helping more people in a bigger way in a more sustainable way, you know.
But the way you said it was things I can do to make things better.
Yeah. Is that what I said? Okay.
Oh,
yeah, and it is completely that, you know, it's completely that. I got so angry the other day. We were looking at LinkedIn and, you know, the whole climate thing, right? And so, you know, great advice, give up flying, just eat plant-based diet. Really good, okay? Someone posted on LinkedIn, there is something that you can do that is 27 times more effective than that. And basically it is invest with St. James's Wealth Management people, and they'll put the money into good ethical funds, right? And there were loads of comments on it saying, oh, this is great that we can do this instead of that. And I thought, well, firstly, it's not a fucking either or thing, right? You can do both, okay? You definitely can do both. And secondly, I just thought, it's not true. You know, there is no data about this. And I was so cross and I was ready to read and write. And you know, so part of me is like, okay, I'm just get wound up by some things, but it's when there's a morality gap, really. You know? But part of me is because I think, okay, I'm someone who knows enough about this stuff to be like the little boy with the Emperor's New Clothes. I can name this thing, you know, and my observation of so much is that people aren't naming things, you know, people aren't naming what's wrong and what's not okay, and in all sorts of dimensions. And I don't want to turn into what Abigail calls a big fat knower, you know, go around telling everyone that they're all wrong and I've got the answers. but maybe I do a bit.
So here's the question: how do you notice your energy right now? Because that's the question you're asking yourself.
I mean, it's not all over the place. It's not frantic, but it's, you know, I could knock doors down at the moment. Yeah, definitely. It's like it's, and I think it is quite focused, you know, and I can see, but it's also, yeah, I mean, but it's also, it's like it's being stimulated by so many externals, you know. About 5 years ago, I gave up watching the news, and I rarely watch the news, and I don't read a newspaper, and I don't look to keep sort of up to date. But with this current situation, you pick up bits, you know, almost inevitably. And I know that, so then most of my energy still comes from external things that I notice that frustrate me. But I have to really be mindful of it, because I could be like that Victor Meldrew character, you know. I could be responding to every bloody thing that happens, and wanting to take stances.
How does that taking a stance play into things like you're working with people who actually are not readily available? They find other things to do. How does that play into that?
Well, part of it sort of reinforces my belief that I'm doing the right thing by doing that, you know. So, you know, when I found my VA, for example, I posted a message on a Sunday, right? A really simple message on a local app called Nextdoor, which is, you know, where you find your plumber and all that. And I wrote the app. I wrote the ad specifically for mums, dads, but mums, term time with kids, balance. And I had 10 replies that day, right? For not much more than minimum wage job, a couple of days a week. And so that told me, okay, you know, I knew that's what I needed to do. And I knew that this is a good thing for me, but also it's a good thing to be able to, if you can, create some work in when these circumstances are not being created, when family-friendly policies are mostly a crock, then yeah, I think it sort of reinforces that actually it's a wise decision, but it's also a values-based decision. Where it gets a bit muddy, I think, is where I've got the training team who are, their busyness is other training jobs, you know. So I think there's less of a sort of, if you like, a moral aspect of it, but more than just accepting good people are likely to be busy. So I think, so I'm not quite sure about there or that, but certainly it feels like, and with Daniel, my young intern, actually, you know, I do feel like a bit of an old duffer, a bit of a mentor, you know, that I'm giving him loads of opportunities to see some great things, and he is responding well. And I don't want to bin these things off. And if I came to the realization I'm never going to be able to move forward unless I have people who are available in a different way from these guys, I think it would just make me really sad. You know, it really would.
So what's that telling you?
Like, listen to my values more than my energy, I think. I mean, it is, isn't it? It's like, I'm not asking you, but it is like, if you listen to your values, it says like, okay, well, that's just an irritating circumstance, you know, that you know, we need to have a weekly chat, but he can only do it every fortnight or whatever. It's just a circumstance, you know. The big picture, you know, the end, you know, that's the deal. That seems to me, that's a deal. And to be aware of these things, but to not worry about it, you know, not overly worry. And maybe what do I need to do is, do I need to then, therefore, I said this the other day, I told someone else this, you know, take your own medicine thing. What was the context of that? It was a you know, a top tip on training, to over resource. That's right. I don't remember what it was. Yeah, it was setting up a new public speaking club. My top tip was over resource. You know, get too many people on the committee so that you got availability. Where's the dog? So, and and I think maybe that's what I'm not doing. I'm sort of under-resourcing, so that then I'm just on the margin, so that if my resource wobbles a bit, then it's back to me. I think I need to over-resource and to fund that over-resourcing. Yes.
So you started off by talking about this being your motivations, and it seems as though we've perhaps moved into being about value-based. So where are we with this now then?
Well, I think I can't really move very far away from my values. I think the motivations still are there and still are important. I think there's something about trying to understand, like I've sort of labeled these unhelpful behaviors, these distractions, as potentially saboteurs, and so then therefore maybe my motivations aren't as strong as they could be. I'd like to say that that's not true. I don't think it is true, but I think that I've sort of stuck that to myself. I sort of said to myself, well, well, because it's the type of bullshit that that maybe a motivational speaker, if you would really want this, you'd be up at 6 o'clock in the morning and do that. So I'm realizing that the voice in my head is, the Mr. Motivator dude, which I don't need, right? And if I notice that I waste some time, then I really need to not worry about it. Really need to fucking not worry about it, because I make up time. I look at my weekend this weekend, and I've got so many things going on when I will be with my children and looking after and nurturing them. But also, I'm going to be able to do quite a lot of work this weekend. I'm sitting at the sidelines, I'm listening. So if I lose some hours here, I always gain some hours. So I think I'm quite hard on myself. I know that. That's a constant theme, and people who are less enlightened than you comment on it. A lot of people say, God, you're really hard on yourself, aren't you? So it doesn't take a genius to work that out. But well, now I'm interested in, why do I tell myself this? Why do I say, hey, you getting lost for an hour means you're not a motivated individual and you don't want to succeed? Why do I tell myself that?
So something that came up for me is I'm just thinking, and correct me, just going to throw this in, is there's something about the saboteur, or what you call the saboteur. Yeah. I wonder how that informs a value.
Yeah. Well, I think it's I think there's probably two things. I think there's one is sometimes it does because I'm being thorough and neat and organized and just trying to be professional. So if I'm spending loads of time, making sure that the feedback on an audio is really good and thorough and so on. But even just tidying, even that silly tidying my email thing, that's not crime. It's not, it's not taking the morning off and watching Jeremy Kyle. Or whatever, you know what I mean? Even that's not a crime, but could be. But I think because sometimes there are times when it is a values clash, so when I'm I had one the other day when I get irritated on the phone when something's you can't get through to people and blah blah blah, and I'm holding on forever to I think the bank, and eventually they were going to come back to me and put me through to the right person, and part of me wanting them to come back to me and say, oh, can't get the right person, so that I could be irritated. And afterwards I thought, where the hell did that come from? Like I'd gone to a place of I would have rather continued the argy-bargy than get this thing solved and put it to bed, So that's an energy thing. That's like getting caught and sucked by my own adrenaline to want to carry on the fight, and that's completely it's a million miles from my values.
And yet you noticed it.
Yeah, well, I did, and I actually noticed it when I was on hold. It's like, why you waiting for that instead of that? What? I mean, I was genuinely sort of flummoxed.
I wonder if the on hold is a metaphor. just Just throw that in there.
No, it's really interesting because actually I don't want to put anything on hold. My son says, sleep is ridiculous and it's a waste of time, and why do we have to do it? And I know we need it, but part of me says, yeah, God, if I could be like Margaret Thatcher and have only that bit of it, and have 20-hour days, how much more productive I would be. Probably I wouldn't be, actually, because the quality of the last 10 hours would be crap. But I think I'm very, very, what I think is this, I think the behaviors that I can manifest really well as a coach, I think I sometimes struggle to manifest as when I'm not a coach. And I'm not talking about, I don't think I'm talking about going around judging people or talking too much. No. I think I manage that, but I think it's patience. It's like, what I'm saying, you need to be really patient when you're coaching, and I can be patient if I'm being productive, so I could, sometimes people send me their assignments and instead of being 3,000 words, they're 30,000 words, and I can be patient and read that and be all right with that. But I think it's like, I find it really hard to be patient. So that when I was clearing those thousands of emails, I was really impatient with myself. I was trying to do it quicker and then get through it, and then you make mistakes. So I think that it's all of those things are putting these things on hold. And actually, there is another metaphor for on hold. It's like, I'm a bit scared that I might have to put big projects on hold because I want to be really conscientious and get through all these things, some of which are really important, some of which actually aren't.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So where are you now in your thinking?
Something. I think something that came up for me. It's about, like, how do I define myself? I mean, I am a learner, of course, and we're all learners, or many of us are learners, and many of us learn a lot. But I think that something about, and this goes back to the other session we had with, about being sort of dominated by my own books and stuff, is that actually, if I consider myself more a learner than a doer, that makes me a bit too unproductive. That puts me in a place where I don't spend hours and days and weeks and months going on courses, but I do spend a lot of time reading. If I think, when I sit at my desk or I have my day, I think, okay, right, I need to balance doing and learning, then I'm sort of not being in service of what I'm good at and what I can carry on doing, and I think that I know what learning I need to do, and I think sometimes the learning stuff is a distraction, rather than just sort of accepting this is fine, this is good, this is good enough. I will pick up the learning, but I'll do it sort of in my own time. So I think that's where I'm at on one thing. I think I've sort of put to bed here the idea that getting lost in an unhelpful task is not self-sabotage. I think that's just a delusion, really, like an unhelpful self-delusion with this Mr. Motivator voice.
So is it about motivations?
I think it probably is more about behaviors and values, actually. And I think it's about is there a right thing? But my version of a right thing, doing the right thing. I think that I feel like I have lots to offer, and I feel like I am offering lots, but also don't want to sort of limit what I'm offering, either by poor self-management, which is, I think, the risk at the moment, or by fear, which the more I think about it, the more I don't feel fearful. The more I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of the potential of some big project failing, and I'm not afraid of, doing some of the things that we are afraid of in the early days. I've stopped being afraid of those things. I've even noticed I'm less afraid of difficult people.
Great, which is good.
Yeah, it's really needed.
So how will you move towards resolving this for yourself, about this whole piece around recognizing your energy, being settled with what you're going to be, who you are?
Well, there's I don't know if you've either read the books or seen the Harry Potter films, but there's one little metaphor, and actually, strangely enough, this is the little symbol. It's just one of my fiddle toys, but this is the little symbol, and it relates to death and these people who cheated death, and this man, one of the men, cheated death, but in a wise way, not in a foolish way, and so death lets him have the rest of his life, and he says, and towards at the end, he went willingly to death, and death greeted him as an old friend. And I really like that metaphor. I think it's the most beautiful piece of writing, actually, because most of our writing isn't beautiful. That it's like greeting unhelpful behaviours as an old friend. And so, like, of course they're going to turn up. I mean, you'll know, if you're a Cat Stevens fan, you'll know this line: "Hello, darkness, my old friend." That's what it is. And I don't hear that like depression, but I just hear like, yeah, hello, the flip side of all that is good about me. It's that, and just saying, well, that's okay. So that's it. In the same way as being a bit disorganized and making bad jokes is a bit of part of how I want to be.
Sounds like you as a human being.
It's like, well, it's in Buddhism. It's really interesting. In our Buddhist practice, it's really interesting is that we do have this we call it Buddhahood. We have this sort of higher life state. And there's a whole bunch of lower life states, but the recognition is that the higher life state contains all of the lower ones as well. So he's not a super god, like anyone who's a Buddha is a mortal with all of the foibles. Yeah, it is, and I think because I'm hard on myself, I go a bit to that sort of, Jesus saying about, the person with no sin casts the first stone. I feel like I should be that person. Not my life, but in my work, I should be the person without faults, rather than actually I've definitely got things in my could do better list, and I think I need to make peace with them. And I think it's maybe it's sort of my version of perfectionism. Again, a word that Abigail would laugh at if she heard me use out loud, because I'm not really a perfectionist but I think I am. I think that there's an element of, let's call it a thorougist rather than a perfectionist. I want to be very thorough.
So how will you use this new awareness, this new learning that you have around yourself?
Well, so the greeting the old friend, I think, is important. I think I think noting things down, I'm really interested to do, just to think, to know what is happening. I think there's definitely something about the over-resourcing that is really important. That's something practical that I need to do. But I think mostly, I think I need to tell my story a bit more. One of the things that is happening for me in our public speaking, we do speeches, and we have sort of criteria to fulfill. And I've just completed all of my projects. So when I do speeches, I can talk. I'm not sort of slightly constrained by I need to demonstrate a skill. So I've got a whole load of things that I want to talk about, and really interesting ideas about the out there stuff. But also, I don't really have a problem talking about myself in public in that way. So I think maybe, some speeches, some talks, some informal sharing. If I had a friend that I went for a pint with, I'd tell them. I don't. So I think it's that. I think it's that there are stories here, and it feels to me like this is quite a rich part of my evolution, and it's interesting.
And you're a great storyteller.
I like a story. It's funny, and I know I'd love to do it better, but I know I do it well, and I know that when I tell a story, it makes sense to it gives me a sense of so that's why I sometimes don't know. I think I want to tell people this for something for them, and often I do, but then I think, okay, no, it was something about me that I really wanted to dig into, you know, and that's interesting.
So talking about it, you hear it, so there's learning for you, and you're also sharing learning with other people, because I know how important that is. Yeah.
Well, there's a great thing Tony Benn said with his diaries. He said, I always give you 3 opportunities. You know, you do the thing, you write about it, you go back and read it, and I think that the same with talking through, because I'd reflect on it. So I do think that years ago someone said to me, they always try to use in training, always try to have any activity have sort of 2 purposes. And I think I'm like that with almost everything. Like if I can make something double valuable, you know, that's wonderful.
So there's true value. It is a true value of yours, isn't it? And, you know, things you can do to make things better is a really deep value of yours, as I hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So as we come to the end of our time, how do you want to finish this time together?
Well, I'm really aware that I've calmed down quite a lot.
Yeah, you have actually.
and I only heard it just now. I'm like, oh yeah, how are you? Just talk. Yeah. You know, I haven't started whispering, but I have calmed down quite a lot, and I think that I feel. I now feel sort of unattached to this. You know, like not detached, not like it's distance, but just okay. And I think that welcoming the old trend thing is like, it's just allowed me to say, well, actually, I'm not attached to this. You know, I'm not attached to, I'm not attached to having to change those behaviors. I think that's what's different, right? I wasn't attached to having to, you know, almost hair shirt myself right, and get rid of those behaviors, but I'm not attached to that, you know. And yeah, I'm not.
What I heard was understanding what's going on with those behaviors and then using that understanding.
Yes. Yeah. Because
in
sometimes
a positive way.
Yeah. Well, sometimes clearly if my behaviors manifest as, you know, disrespectful and all that, I am attached to getting those sorts out. but knowing that they're probably just another nuance of all of my strengths. I think it's that, and I think I hadn't seen it as I think I'd seen it as a sort of suck back to old behaviours, to unhelpful behaviours. But I don't think it is. I think it's more like it's just a nuance of some decent behaviours.